Hey guys, so I just wanted to come on and show you my plans and past practices for shadow work because, well, what I was originally going to do was show you how I've been working with my tarot and oracle cards like this past season, meaning late summer, early fall. Um, and then I realized that everything that I was doing was sort of leading me up into what I could and would do for 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 shadow season. So I was just gonna push it off and just do it at the end of the season for that and kind of do like a combo thing. And then I realized that's not super helpful because maybe some people are looking for ideas. So I figured I would just share them preemptively. Um, I have three main things I'm going to focus on, sort of intensifying as we get to number three. But also within each one, there are, of course, like mods that you could make or think of on your own, even that would sort of bring you deeper, depending on how deep you're ready to go. So, that being said, let's just get right into this. Okay, so the first exercise is not really going to come as a surprise. Actually, none of them are really a surprise. It's just a matter of what you do with each exercise. So, number one, we have journaling. I'm going to show you the prompts that I use. Actually, a lot of them are new to me. Some of them aren't. The prompts are a combination of what I had found sort of Googling online. Let me see if I can pull this out a little bit. Hang on. There we go. So the prompts are a combination of what I've found online, none of it well cited or sourced, because I can honestly say all of the ones that I ended up choosing from what I had seen online, I saw on multiple sites, and even some people selling like the same prompts, and not saying that it's like plagiarism's not where I'm going with this. What I mean to say is there's very specific questions that will bring you to that level of depth of your mind that we're looking to reach when we do shadow work. I did see bad prompts, like I'm not gonna lie. They're not all created equal. There's a difference between self-reflecting and this term shadow work that has become very trendy in the recent years, especially with the sort of new renewed interest in divination and tarot and things like that. So I think it gets to the point where it just becomes a saturated market, and there's a lot of people trying to jump on the bandwagon here with good intention, but maybe not the most helpful advice or offerings, because some questions only bring you to your conscious level of mind, which is what reflection is, but we're looking to go a little deeper. So these prompts, and so again, there's some that I just found online that I thought were helpful, and some that I came up with in my own meditation. That's not to say they're unique or original, because I never looked for them elsewhere, but it's just things that I thought of while working, and that actually took me pretty far. And this is just, I made this on Canva. It's not something that you can like print out online. I put this together to be in this is where I keep kind of all of my spreads and stuff like that. So, oops. Sorry about that. So with each question, the first one, they're intended to be used with tarot cards because that's my practice. They don't have to be used with, the shadow work journal prompts don't have to be tarot driven prompts. but you'll find that some of, like the first one, what subconscious energy needs to be addressed? That's a very tarot driven prompt because it's hard to come up with that on your own because the question is innately a subconscious inquisition. Um, Paints a picture of my darkest reality. Like, that's not a question that's easy to answer consciously. That's the whole point of shadow work. What energy from my childhood needs to be revisited? Not something you could easily sit here and think of in a shadow work type of way, because if it was something you could quickly think of, you're probably not going to find your shadow there. The whole point of doing the shadow work is to discover, especially for a beginner. If you've been doing this for many years, you know already, you're familiar with your shadow. So you can answer some of these questions right away because it's an ongoing process and work for you. But if you're new to this, the whole point of the shadow is that you don't know. It's a subconscious part of yourself that you are not familiar with and don't recognize. So tarot is a great way to bring it to the surface. And these questions, because I use tarot, are tarot driven. Some of them I can answer for myself already just from having done the work already, but there's always other sides and other parts of your shadow to discover. Some of the questions online that are not tarot driven questions, and like as an example of what I don't think are helpful offerings for shadow work, were like like what's one relationship I can work on fixing? Something like that. If you are new to this, you have to really dig to find your shadow in that and know that it exists and is a real factor in a question like that. For a beginner, that question would probably end at self-reflection. Like, oh, my best friend since childhood really annoys me, and I should probably put in more effort in responding in a more meaningful and patient way. That is a perfectly good answer to that question. It's not shadow work though. So without the prompt being explored further, you're not really going to get to where you're looking for. And guess what? You just paid for a bunch of prompts that were just like that. Especially not if you're not using cards or whatever your preferred divination tool is, because they help you access your subconscious mind. So if you're going to go with prompts like that, I would definitely suggest using cards. And if you're new to tarot also, and new to shadow work, just use better prompts. You know what I mean? So I digress. I kind of felt a type of way about some of the prompts I was seeing that were labeled as shadow work. But anyway, what subconscious energy needs to be addressed? Where does it originate? And where does it bring me? I just basically built a tarot spread for this. And the cards would do a lot of the work for me in accessing that part of my mind. Because, you know, the cards really don't hold back. Speaking of that, what do I hold on to that is, excuse my typo, that holds me back? What do I love about this so much? And what can I do to rise above this? This one is aiming for more than just like, I'm not ready to let go of this job because I am addicted to the security it brings me. And I am afraid to try something new. That's a great self-reflection question. But when you are working with the right deck, it will show you more than just things you're consciously aware of in your day-to-day life. It could be something like patterns in your relationship with anyone, let's say parental patterns. A lot of shadow work will probably bring you right back to your parents, to be completely honest. It's typical psychology, right? And those are not things that you think of day to day because you've sunk into a system, and you excuse a lot of behaviors from your parents and your own behaviors towards your parents because it's how it has been done your entire life and it's normal to you. If you've ever started dating somebody and they've pointed out to you like, oh, that's kind of weird that your family does that, pay attention to that because they maybe are not just trying to be a critical asshole, but they're just showing you an outsider perspective on the unhealthy family patterns that you have that are now ingrained in you to the point where you think that they're perfectly normal. Paint a picture of my darkest reality is intended for multiple cards to be laid down and sort of read intuitively. And then if tarot, this one I found, this was a question from the Lion Hearts Challenge, which is it's an Instagram handle, and they every month they post like a challenge of the month, and it's a different question to be used with tarot for every day. And I really like this. This is actually for September, I think. If tarot were my sole currency, what card is putting me in debt? And I just really liked how that was phrased, because instead of asking like, what do I need to work on? It's prompting the cards to answer for you. What am I putting energy into that is actually draining me? And that being said, every card has the potential to be doing this because we're creating, we're turning the cards into currency. So that one, like as a journal prompt, is like that's going to be a really long one. And then of course, how do I heal this? And that one I kind of threw in, is pretty typical. The childhood. Oh, I thought of adding this one because I was reading a series of prompts and this one was not part of it, but something about that series of prompts made this one pop into my head. What energy from my childhood needs to be revisited? And furthermore, what occurred that I wouldn't want to see another child go through? That's a great one without the cards. You can sit and think about that, but it's probably going to hurt like hell. You know what I mean? And then this section, what feelings do I avoid? What emotions bring out the worst in me? And then it leads into what is the most hurtful thing I've done to someone. These are sort of sequential for me because I find that it's sort of like asking, what has made me act out of character? It is almost always something somebody has done. Because we're social beings. I don't think you can ever find your true personality devoid of the other. That's just human psychology and evolution. So that's why I brought in what is the most hurtful thing I've done to someone, because it was probably after having some emotion bringing out the worst in me, I probably did that thing. And then what's the most hurtful thing I've done to myself? And that's it. That was more than enough for me. I was like, wow, I'm really not looking forward to that. It's not double-sided. As you can tell, I'm good with this. And it's not even a question a day. I would suggest maybe not doing a question a day because that's a bit much, but instead focusing a lot on a few things. So these are the prompts that I'm using. That I know I sort of went off on a tangent maybe. Feel free to fast forward or even just pause and just like look at what I chose if you made it this far. Okay, moving on. Number 2 exercise was actual they're readings, but they're layered now. So how this started for me was one of my practices from last season was learning or working more with a new, not new, but like a deck that I wasn't working with that often. And I found that layering my spreads helped leeway my understanding into the new deck's cards. Making the first layer Rider-Waite-Smith and then layering the new deck on top of it. This is just my example deck. I don't think this was the deck I was using for this because I really like this deck. But I'm using this as an example. So, by the way, this is the Badass Tarot. It's an indie deck. I bought it from the website that you can see on here. It's one of my favorite decks. It's not for everyone, so I don't know what cards I'm gonna pull from here for my example. So let's just do all of the trigger warnings and all of the I don't know, parental guidance warnings, because some of the cards are a little raunchy. But I imagine we're all adults here, I suppose. So let's say, for example, you're doing a regular, like a regular spread, past, present, and future. Wow. Okay. And then you have your question, right? This isn't just a blob spread. There's a specific question, past, present, future. And then you go into your next layer. It's like, okay, let's look deeper at the past. This is the surface. Oh, that's interesting. If I had a question, that would be very interesting. This is another reason to use multiple decks when you're doing a reading. But anyway, how I was using this to learn a new deck was, I know my Rider-Waite-Smith. Let's do this. But let's say I don't know this deck as well. How does the new deck build onto my understanding of the Rider-Waite-Smith answering that question that I just asked? That's how I was using it to learn a new deck. So like, let's say my future card here was the Four of Swords. I get it. Let's keep it simple, okay? I'm gonna take a mental sick day in the next week. And then I pull the Ace of Wands, and I would ask myself, okay, how does this, because this might be harder to read with, how does this build onto my understanding that in the near future I'm going to take a mental sick day? Maybe my boyfriend's going to take the same mental sick day that I am, and we're going to have the day off together. Or maybe I'm going to go to the museum that day, and I'm just going to meander around and admire the artwork. You know, it's just another layer and the Rider-Waite-Smith kind of helps anchor you. Instead of wondering all the different possibilities that are presented with a new card you maybe haven't read with as often, it anchors you into place. So that's how I was using that exercise. Now, using this for shadow work, I sample question. Let's say you had a fight with your significant other, and in that fight, you want to look at, let's say you were able to admit to yourself that you were wrong, okay? Big hypothetical. But let's say you admitted that to yourself, and now you want to just look at your experience of this argument. And let's say you take a card for your actions, your thoughts, his or her or their actions, and his or her or their thoughts. This is a very popular card today, okay? So you have your first layer, your actions here and your thoughts here. You would read this as usual. This is the first layer of your reading. This is the shadow work part, okay? How do your actions conflict with his actions? And how do your thoughts conflict or compare to his thoughts? I'm saying his because I did this and over like it wasn't even really an argument. It was just one of those, and this is what it's also really good for, just a recurring issue that you seem to have in your relationship, your past relationships, and not just intimate relationships, even those with friends, right? Like or family. Things that always seem to bother you. Take one specific argument that could have led to and study that. And I did this with a disagreement that my boyfriend and I had, which, to be completely honest, it was so petty of me. I don't even remember what the fuck it was. Like, sitting here right now, I don't even remember what it was about. But that's the point of shadow work. So you're going to use this to look at the argument from both sides and then really jump into your side. Like, okay, my actions are this, my thoughts are this. Does this reflect my thoughts? Are my actions reflecting my thoughts? And are their actions impacting my thoughts? Or are these sort of standing on its own? And do these conflict with each other, especially? Because, like, if, let's say, you also have to decide who you are in the card. Let's say I decide that, okay, my actions are, I'm the King of Pentacles. It's shadow work, so let's get a little shadowy here. I'm very stingy with my money and my attention, and I really am just all about myself right now, and I feel like I've earned X, Y, or Z, so I deserve to spend it on myself. And your partner is very supportive of this for you. Like, oh, I love this for you, right? Strength. Like, you're the lion in their action card, and they're the strength figure. And maybe their thoughts are, they're actually really inspired by this. They like this about you, and they're using it as a motivation for themselves. Whereas your thoughts are, you kind of resent them because you feel like you have to be a financial stepping stone for them, right? Let's think of it that way. Now, next layer, you're going to take another deck. And again, adding the layers is where I came up with this shadow work exercise. It's a little more complicated than just journaling, because you do have to read a lot of cards even a small spread like this, which is only 4 cards. You do have to read the connection between each and every card, like you saw me pointing out. So it's a little more advanced, but you can keep it simple. You could do 2 layers, you could do 3 layers, as far as you want to go. So, okay, these are the surface thoughts and actions. What's the level deeper here? Again, this might make absolutely no sense because I'm not shuffling and I'm not asking a specific question. So, okay. Surface level deeper. This is the first thing that stood out to me because, and this is like an example if you're doing this reading for real, you feel how we said about yourself here in your actions, right? Like your entitlement. But deeper than that, it's probably a level of insecurity. As you can see in this particular deck's 5 of Wands, it's just a penis measuring contest, right? We see that all the time. And it's hypothetical. It's I mean, the actual card itself is, you can get into how it's a testament to society's chauvinistic attitude and etc. We're not reading for society, okay? We're reading for shadow work. Everyone measures himself this way. It's about the ego. So this persona that you're putting forth, the level deeper, like with your actions, is you trying to compensate for your ego. That's how you go a level deeper with the cards. You can pause and like practice like with the cards that I just pulled. But basically each level is the cause of the preceding level. So let's go with this one because this one is pretty helpful here. So why are you so insecure? You'd pull another card. Ideally another deck, but I don't really... Oh, I do have another deck. This is an oracle deck. Why are you so insecure? And you have the Sun card. Because you're not really sure of who you are. Okay? You see how simple you could keep it to make it more beginner friendly? Every card doesn't need to have a paragraph long response or reflection, but you can tell that by adding more cards, you're going deeper and deeper into the workings of your own psyche. You know, you haven't found yourself yet. So it's going to reflect in how you act in a relationship, because your identity in a relationship isn't corresponding with your identity as an individual because you don't have one. You know, that's a really big discovery to make. And it only took you 3 cards. So this is why I like this exercise for shadow work. And it seems this, I was honestly debating on this being my number 3 exercise as far as difficulty basis, but then I was like, well, no, because for me, number 3 was much harder. So let me get that one set up. Okay. Exercise number 3. I just started doing a couple days ago, actually. And this was also a deck I was using last season. And my practice with this deck was really, I was just going through the cards. I was reading the guidebook because it's a well-written guidebook for learners of astrology. And even someone who has read a lot of material on it, the delivery is very clear and concise. So I was just going through the cards and getting to know them, and because I had never worked with this deck before, and I found myself I found the cards so immersive. This might be one of my favorite cards. Hang on. I just want to focus this for you guys. This might be one of my favorite cards of all time for the depiction of the meaning of this association with Aquarius. But I mean, of all time, like out of every tarot card I've ever seen, every oracle card I've ever seen, this might be my absolute favorite depiction. So anyways, I was going through the cards and I found how immersive they were, and I found myself kind of just closing my eyes and putting myself in the environment that was shown. And actually, I can get closer because this one I don't need to have anything spread out. Okay. So I did an unboxing of this deck, which I'll try to remember to link below, but you're probably going to see most of the cards as I'm talking. I would put myself in the card and just imagine the environment and feel the energy that it created. And it really did help create a new level of understanding of all of these astrological concepts. It got really good when I got to the houses. So actually, let's just do this. Because the houses, of course, by nature create like a place for your head to go. And that's not to say it works beautifully with the other cards as well, but this is how long it took me. The houses were the last section of the deck that I got to. And this is how long it took me to actually get this exercise going, which I was not doing intentionally, but that's when my mind kind of unlocked. I like this one. So this is the 10th house. So you're basically path working, right? By the way, sorry, this is the Astro Essentia deck. I bought it off of Etsy. The link is in my unboxing video that I'll put below. God, Mila, get it together. You're basically path working through the card, right? But because astrology in and of itself is something meant to help you understand yourself, it started working so well for shadow work. So what you do is take in the card, close your eyes. Let me get some other houses laid out here that I really liked. Oh, this was a good one. And just imagine how you don't imagine anything. You just close your eyes and you open your third eye in the card and just be there. And in the beginning, you're probably going to find yourself sort of walking around and interacting with the people in the card or taking in the scenery, sort of absorbing the surroundings. But by the time I got to maybe the 7th house, when I closed my eyes and opened my third eye in the card, I had less control over what I found myself doing in the card. Now, I wouldn't identify as clairvoyant in any way, but I have always been a very active dreamer, both in my sleep, subconsciously, and daydreaming, like conscious daydreaming. I mean, I am a Pisces, so my dreams have always been very active. And so even though I wouldn't really identify as being clairvoyant, maybe if you do, this would be, you would experience this on a whole nother level. But I still think that if you do this enough, because it is a meditation, that's why it's the third one. For me, it's very difficult to meditate. But if you do this enough, it sort of, you will awaken more. But it takes a lot more commitment than just journaling or sitting down to cast a spread. Once you reach that point where you can awaken inside of the card and you're not really controlling yourself in the card anymore, you're now seeing how your subconscious reacts to this energy. Like when you open your eye and you're in this card, are you observing yourself on the hilltop? Are you in the crowd? Are you off to the side? If you're off to the side, what are you doing there? If you're observing yourself in this workplace here, what are you doing? When you opened your eye, were you already leaning over your desk with your head in your hand? Were you talking to your coworkers? Were you kicking back with your feet up on your desk and just bullshitting? Like, what were you doing in that office when you opened your eye and found yourself there? This is the 12th house. This is excellent for this. When you opened your eye, what were you doing? You know, and I'm talking about when you get to the point where you are not controlling, you're just observing yourself, much like a dream. And I'm not gonna lie, it took me to almost the end of the deck to get to that point because it is a meditation. And I was actually not doing it meditatively. I would be sitting on the couch with other people and things going on around me and doing this. So if you actually commit to it, it might come a lot quicker. If you're more connected with your sight, it might come a lot quicker. If you meditate a lot, it might come a lot quicker. So it might be easier for you, but a lot of times as a beginner, you're not used to doing these things. And so it might take you longer to get to that point. If that's the case, stay with your conscious exploration of the card. And because you will still discover a lot about, even if you're consciously exploring the card, like what was it you were drawn to? Were you drawn to the bird flying out of the cage? Were you drawn to the mystery figure that's completely shrouded? Were you drawn to the portal in the back and like peeking through that? And then analyze why you were drawn to that part of the card. It works even better if you have an understanding of astrology, because then you know how all of these different objects and figures in the artwork of the card relate to that house and what part of that is speaking to you for what reason. You won't know, but you'll have to discover that through the shadow exploration. You know what I mean? But it's not necessary to understand astrology because everything is symbolic and sort of a placeholder for the power of your own mind. So it might require a little extra work on your part, but it's still completely doable. You also don't need to do this with an astrology deck. You can do it. I'm just going to show you some of the other cards so you can see how depictive they are. You also don't need to do it with an astrology deck. Like you can do it with a tarot deck. You can do it with the major arcana. Put yourself in the devil card and see, and who are you in that card? Are you the devil, or are you one of the two people chained up at the bottom? Or maybe you have like a deck that has like it's not a Rider-Waite-Smith clone. That would be even better. Take out all your devil cards and do it with every single card. I can think of a devil card right now that it's from the Super Lunaris Tarot, and it's a figure, again, shrouded in a veil, emerging from the water, I believe, and is basically a puppet, like on strings. And that is probably one of my favorite devil cards. But that depiction versus the actual depiction of the devil in hell is going to work great for yourself when you do both, and then you compare both explorations, whether you're at the level where you're doing subconscious or conscious exploration. So as you can see, these are cards that lend themselves well to this because they're so immersive. And that's why I was doing this with this deck, and why I'm actually going to keep using this deck for this purpose. I don't know why that keeps not focusing. I'm sorry. For this purpose during shadow season. And I actually just thought of using different major arcana, or the same major arcana from different decks. That's actually, this is going to sound maybe a little Aries-y, but it's a great idea. Love that for myself. Oh yeah, I accidentally mixed these back in when I was doing exercise 2. Okay, those were my 3 exercises that I really connect with and recommend for others, and I'm going to do further this season.